anyone who has any degree in psych, especially the higher you go, I've got a good friend who is a doctorate in psychology. Take these things with a grain of salt. You are a vastly more dynamic human than any personality type could ever peg you to be. So I give you that freedom. What you don't want to do, can I go to the next one? What you don't want to do is live out the, I'm going to say it wrong, you say it right.
Pygmalion effect.
Pygmalion effect. The Pygmalion effect is simple self-fulfilling prophecy. Have you guys ever heard of self-fulfilling prophecy? Maybe you're raised and you're being told that you're, sadly, this is the negative. The negative would be like, oh, you're such a dumb kid. And if you hear that all the time, you're most likely going to start acting like you're not intelligent and believing you're not intelligent. It has nothing to do with your capacity to learn, but everything to do with what you believe to be true about yourself. The same thing can happen for yourself and how you view others when you get into these temperament personality types. So just separate yourself from it and realize that just because you might fall somewhat into somewhat of a category, that you don't have to become everything, but you can use it to support your growth or avoid your strengths, or rather, not avoid your strengths. I'm distracted by the cupcake over there.
Do you see why I gain weight sometimes?
I do. You've gotten a lot of...
Not that anybody in here has ever cooked me anything.
And I'd like to point out that I am the pregnant wife and you haven't offered me either. So.
You are pregnant. With our fourth child.
Yeah, I'm going to take this one.
I think the reason you'll get food from this class group is because by the time we get here, I think we've eaten it all.
You've eaten it all. Yeah.
So anyways, what you want to avoid is walking in a negative aspect of yourself that you don't have to walk in, okay? So if you see some part of this personality type that you land in, but that's not you, don't accept it. Just move on and take what you can take that is the best out of each of these things, okay? With that being said, we're going to walk into these so we can learn these types, learn some of our weaknesses and our strengths.
May I just real quick? The other thing that we found is that there are a lot of businesses, a lot of colleges and universities, like wherever you work, this is like all the rage right now in these circles to take these tests. And what we find is that sometimes people pigeonhole other people. If you don't know what that means is like, if I think she's a 3, then I'm going to start treating her like a 3 and expecting everything that she does to be a 3 and like maybe sometimes even like the worst parts of the 3. And so, like, you can't treat yourself that way and you can't treat other people that way either. You may not get to the point where you understand this that much, but if you do happen to work in an environment where they're all about this.
And a lot of environments are.
Yeah.
And
so,
especially if you're going to college.
So for number 1, all you need to put down is the perfectionist. Or sorry, number
1, you're right.
Number 4, just put the perfectionist. And then there's going to be about 4 or 5 slides where whatever she's saying, just find something that you can latch onto, a couple phrases, and put that down. Okay, go ahead, sorry.
So the perfectionists, they are typically principled, purposeful, self-controlled, and perfectionistic. And other sites that you might venture, they're also known as the reformists. And I'm just going to put a disclaimer. You don't have to be a perfectionist in your organization to be the reformist or the perfectionist. Some perfectionists are actually more perspective about the world around them than their actual organization of their own lives. So that's something that this type gets miscasted with sometimes. But their typical snapshot of this personality type is that they are serious and straightforward during conversations. I kind of think Spock, if you guys like Star Trek going back. They are tuned to practicality and frugality. They are hardworking and diligent as employees. They have high internal standards. They have a rigidity in plans and decisions and an intense ability to concentrate. And then they have a natural talent for teaching or instructing. So you might find a lot of your teachers fall into this category. My sister falls into this category. She can thrive at anything that she does. She is a physician. Both in rheumatology and optometry, but she makes more money being a social influencer. So just whatever she does, she thrives at. She's very much a perfectionist. Their fear is being a bad person, so bad people. Being morally flawed or otherwise or seen as imperfect is a huge fear for these guys. They cope with this fear by being rigidly disciplined and very hard on themselves and also hard on those around them. Maybe you are a one, or you know someone, maybe your sister growing up was a one and you experienced this. So ones strive to be good and honorable and to live a life with purpose. They seek the best and most correct way to do things. So as a one, you might identify with Nelson Mandela, who was also identified as a one. He said, as long as poverty, injustice, and gross inequality persist in our world, none can truly rest. And this is where you can see the divergence of the perfectionism going to the global world around him. And a tip or an area of growth for the ones is basically just to lighten up and relax a little bit. It's easier said than done, but the one's path to growth lies in learning to not take everything in life so serious. Look for the silliness in yourself and the world around you, and take time to relax and be present. This will help you not lose your mind.
If you think you're a one at this point, or you might have some aspects of one, just make sure you make a little note next to there, because we're going to ask you again.
Ones grow into a seven. You'll learn more about that here in just a minute. And when you're stressed out, you'll resort down to the weaknesses of a four. Jason mentioned the wings. Each of the Enneagram types have wings. You might wing to a 9 or wing to a 2 and show basically traits of those kinds. So what you can already tell is this is a very diverse system. You're never going to wing to just one number, and I'll give you a little more freedom with that as well as someone who doesn't really fit with numbers very well himself. Number 2 is the giver. They are the caring interpersonal type, demonstrative, generous, people-pleasing, and positive, also known as the helper. Now, a lot of women are typecast due to our cultural prejudice. What? Oh, possessive. What did I say?
Positive.
Well, they are positive, but yeah, possessive as well. A lot of women are typecast as the giver. So it is recommended if you get a 2 and you are a woman to test again and make sure that actually is your predominant type. In a snapshot, type 2 is they are warm and approachable. They radiate kindness. They are very vocal and they are very into being activists. They are excellent team players. They are caring and gentle, nurturing and patient. They are smooth and they tend to have flowy motions. So just a very comforting, kind person. 2s, they fear being alone and unloved, and they cope with this fear by taking care of others and making themselves really important. So they try to really get themselves right where they're needed so that they can feel that love and acceptance. They do this because they want to feel loved and appreciated, which motivates them to express love towards others and their own actions. Okay? So a great quote from a very famous 2 that you guys might guess is Mother Teresa. You guys familiar with Mother Teresa and the work that she's done? She did work in Calcutta. She was like in the slums of the slummiest slums on the planet, like bringing life to children and rejuvenating them. And you can see her 2-ness in this, in that she says there is more hunger in the world for love and appreciation than for bread. And being someone who dealt with the starvation of thousands and thousands of people all her life, to realize that love is more needed, that just screams her 2-ness.
Did you say that one of their weaknesses is that they try to worm their way into being the center part of other people's lives?
They assert themselves into people's lives so that they can be leaned on and be important. And if those people don't appreciate them for doing that, then they get really upset. Kind of ticked off.
So you can see there's some positives and negatives to each one.
Every type. And I said that in the first class of the 4s could be more of like a personality disorder, but that's not true. Every type can fall into its own disorder. So. Share your authentic self with other people. 2s tend to alter their personalities to please the people around them. So if you feel like you're a 2, make a conscious effort to be transparent and to be honest about how you think and feel. You will actually learn that people truly value your authentic side. Okay, so be open to that. 2s, they grow into the 4th strength, And when twos are stressed out, they fall into the weaknesses of the eight. We'll learn more about those. Number 3, Ron, is the achiever. This is what your teacher tests as, I believe, but he'll test it again tomorrow. It is a success-oriented, pragmatic type, adaptable, excelling, driven, and image-conscious. They're also known as the performer.
What image?
Not as much with like your clothes as you are with your persona, like obviously.
Obviously not, because look at my shirt. I had this in high school.
And that's because you're a human being, you're not just a 3 walking around. So we're much more dynamic than what these
No,
people
literally, I had this shirt in high school.
You have a lot of clothes. Key personality traits for 3 is they are acutely, I messed up there. Acutely aware of social niceties, an impressive range of accomplishments with 2 masters for you back there. Extremely busy and on the go. Jam-packed schedules and meetings. They may have interest in provision or acting, and refined taste in their outer appearance or not. And charismatic. They make good first impressions. 3's fear being insignificant or a failure. To cope with this fear, they look for ways to win in life, reassuring themselves that they are valuable. If you have a hard time figuring out which is your dominant trait, what I did is I looked at the fears, because sometimes we're more attuned to our fears than anything else. Core motivations is they're motivated for attention and admiration. They strive to be successful and significant to avoid feelings of worthlessness. They can be detached from their feelings because of this avoidance, as many other types can too. Will Smith is a famous 3, and he says, I trained myself to illuminate the things in my personality that are likable and to hide and protect the things that are less likable. So this is just kind of screaming that 3 persona that they're really trying to put themselves out there as the best. And in direct kind of opposition to that, the growth area that I've highlighted is to embrace vulnerability. So vulnerability can be scary, especially for a 3, because it means allowing other people to see who you truly are, not just who you want them to see. However, 3s grow when they learn how to embrace vulnerability and act in ways that are more authentic to themselves. So this is where you can grow and become a more cool, holistic person. 3s grow into the strengths of a 6, and they stress into the weaknesses of a 9. The individualist. This is the sensitive, introspective type. They're expressive, dramatic, and self-absorbed, and temperamental. And typically they stick out in a room. You'll see why, but not always. They can surprise you, definitely. And 4s typically don't think they're 4s, but they kind of think they're 4s. Gosh, I've seen all my errors. I checked this like 7 times. Okay. All right, distinctive inner and outer presentation. So they dress differently. They are prominent with artistic outlets. They are quirky and endearing. They have melancholic expression, strong sense of identity. They may feel a sense of emptiness, and they are passionate about self-expression.
Can you explain to them what a melancholic expression means?
Actually, I'll let you.
Yeah, so if you're melancholy, you're kind of like, you ever watch Winnie the Pooh when you were kids? Eeyore, he's always down in the dumps, like everything.
With the donkey.
Be a bad day.
Yeah, it's a donkey.
Yeah, the donkey, yeah.
Who's melancholy? It doesn't mean that you're depressed. Yeah. 4's fears are that they are flawed and are missing out on some basic aspects of happiness that other people have access to. Like there's just something missing. To cope with this fear, they amplify what is different or special about themselves, looking for a niche in which they can be appreciated. Okay? So 4s are motivated by their desire to express their individuality and to be unique. They do this through creative endeavors and by over-identifying with the aspects of their personality that they view as lacking or deficient. Okay, this is kind of your artsy, angsty type of person.
So if you are artistic and moody,
You might
you might be.
see yourself in a 4, and I have tested 4. I've tested a lot of things. So history is what those bitter old men write. Jackie Kennedy is classified as a type 4 on the Enneagram. So although she dressed very mainline, she also has a lot of quotes about dressing like a marble pillar. She just wanted to set herself apart and had a lot of emotion in what she did, and she went through quite a bit. So that's a 4 as a president's wife. The encouragement for the 4s is to practice positive affirmation. And I actually want to encourage every person to do this, but especially if you get lost in your thoughts and you get lost in your negativity like a 4 tends to do. Positive affirmations, I do this with our kids on the way to school every day. It's say what is good and what is right and bring that to the top of your mind. That can actually change the structure of your physical brain. It's pretty amazing. 4s are prone to negative self-talk. By focusing your mind on positive thoughts, you can develop a kinder, more positive self-image and mindset. That's something we need to have a whole class on these days. 4s, they grow into a 1 in their strengths, and they fall into the weaknesses of a type 2. The investigator. This is the intense cerebral type. They are perspective, innovative, secretive, and isolated. My father was a 5. This is the most rare type that you can be.
Cerebral means brainiac.
Mm-hmm. Smarty pants.
Smarty pants. It's rarer than an 8?
Yes, actually. 8 is So I did that for a while. Anyways, I'm just realizing that I just copied and pasted it. Appears lost in thought or absent-minded. Extremely difficult to crack the inner world. In-depth knowledge on specific subjects of interest. Gives insightful, well thought out responses. Thinks extensively before speaking. Has clear boundaries between family and friends and work. And is withdrawn and extremely independent. 5s fear being overwhelmed by their own needs and the needs of others. They just don't want to be overwhelmed by people. To cope with this fear, they withdraw from relationships and maintain a minimalist lifestyle, focusing on the intellectual as an escape from the demands of the world. I'm so glad my mother is still healthy and living. She is nowhere near a 5. Like, she wants as much stuff as she can possibly get her hands on. And so sometimes I wonder what life would have been like if my father had outlived her, who would have gotten rid of everything for us. We're going to have a lot more work to do when Mom goes.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
It says extremely difficult to crack inner world. Does that mean it's hard to get to know them? Because they don't open up to people?
Yes.
Okay.
Unless you're like one of their very close friends. As a child of one, I knew him a lot more than anybody else.
So you have maybe few good friends.
Extremely few. Mm-hmm. 5s are motivated by a desire to be competent and possess a strong understanding of their environment. This motivation drives them to a nearly constant state of learning and knowledge and knowledge. A famous 5 is Albert Einstein. 2 things are infinite: the universe and human stupidity. I'm not sure about the universe. A growth point: if you are a 5, explore your emotions. 5 use information and knowledge gathering as a way to avoid emotional discomfort. Challenge yourself to sit with your feelings and look into what you may be repressing. Try writing out how you feel and listing what actions you can take, other than ignoring, to deal with these actions. And they grow into an 8 and they stress into a 7, as you can see here. They range for 6.
Kid, we just got done with 5, right?
Mm-hmm.
We're going into 6. Has anybody here not found which one they think they are yet? Like, are you still waiting for yours? Okay. All right. I'm just making sure.
There's 3 more. 6 is the skeptic. They're also known as the loyalist in many sites. They're the committed, security-oriented type. They are engaging, responsible, anxious, and suspicious. They have a strong identification with a social group. They are organized and well liked. They are good at managing finances. They are excellent team players. They belong to a tight-knit group of friends. They're clear communicators, and they're detail-oriented and precise. Sixes fear being unprepared and unable to defend themselves from danger. To cope with this fear, they attempt to be prepared for every possible turn of events. Okay, they don't want to be caught unawares. This type is motivated by their need for safety and security. They seek support and reassurance from other people, and they are extremely loyal to people and groups that they trust. When I was studying the Enneagram, this was considered the most common type in the United States. Probably globally, now type 9 is considered the most common type. I thought that was an interesting shift in just a couple years' time. But yeah, I think I went into a 6 as a mom. A man who stands for nothing will fall for anything. Malcolm X, you can see as a famous 6. Develop healthy habits for the 6s. This is how you can improve to release anxiety. 6s spend a lot of time in their heads, so it's essential to practice habits that allow your energy to focus on your body. While exercise is important for everyone, it's especially helpful in getting a 6 to focus more on the present and release stress. Who doesn't do that? 6s grow into the strength of a 9, and they degenerate into the stress of a 3.
So do they worry about worst case scenarios?
Yes. And you might see a lot of yourself in several of these types, and that's okay too, because they're dynamic humans. And the Enneagram actually does allow for that, unless you get under the tutelage of someone who's not very open-minded. But originally, the Enneagrams would be much more diverse. The enthusiast is the busy, variety-seeking type. They are spontaneous, versatile, acquisitive, and scattered. This is one of the ones that I tested as the most.
So don't mix up inquisitive, meaning curious, with acquisitive. Acquisitive means you try to get stuff.
This is always on the go, wide range of interests, childlike enthusiasm and energy, curious, sparkling eyes is how you might describe them, many ongoing professional and creative projects, upbeat and optimistic, glass half full outlook, well-liked and popular among peers. 7s fear getting stuck in a rut and missing out on a good life. They cope with this fear by constantly seeking out exciting, novel, and fun experiences. More than anything, 7 wants to avoid feeling bored, sad, or uninspired. My father cast me as a type 7 because I've been in like 28 countries and jumped out of airplanes and was like a rock guide and a whitewater rafting guide and all these extreme things, but I stood at the bed. I fell in 100%. You want to go back?
Possible to go back. I just wonder how many of you, like, look at that core motivation. 7s want to avoid feeling bored, sad, or uninspired. I'm just wondering how many of you in here are like that. I don't know, Landon, is that you, Annie?
Yes, I mean, like,
Any
you always
of
have to
those.
have something with it.
Mhm.
I'm wondering if that one is, at least that part of 7 is
Right.
you.
Right.
So,
Some of the things will rise above the others. And again, this is to help you find growth, not to make you not a more dynamic person. So this is Amelia Earhart. She said, women like men should try to do the impossible. And when they fail, their failure should be a challenge to others. So she just took this excitement and just this vast willingness to endeavor.
yeah, I mean, my wife has a lot of 7s in her. We met when she was a whitewater rafting guide.
Mhm.
That was her full-time job, the whitewater rafting guide. How many times have you skydived? Twice.
Mhm.
She's been on mission trips all over the country, all over the world, including Africa, where she almost got caught up in a jihad.
Right.
So,
Yes. But I don't collect things. I'm not materialistic. So you'll find you hit some and not others. So practice active listening rather than listening to other people with intent to respond. Practice listening to understand. Wouldn't this help like everyone on social media or in every conflict situation. Not every statement needs an immediate response. Take time to consider what other people are saying and focus on crafting more thoughtful and empathetic responses.
Hear that,
will help you
Landon?
grow.
Thoughtful and empathetic.
Empathetic. Listen to listen. It's a challenge.
I'm just
It's good.
teasing you.
Sevens will stress into a one and become perfectionistic, even though they are typically scattered. And they will grow into a five and become more retrospective and contemplative. Your eight is the challenger. This is another very, very rare type to find, but they are very dynamic type. They are powerful, dominating, self-confident, decisive, willful, and confrontational. I see some of this in my husband with his challenging of people and things, but he's probably more of a three. Again, these are dynamic people. Independent and self-sufficient, fierce and confident is their look. There's determination and stamina. They are very energetic and busy. They have fiery passion and power. They are stubborn and headstrong, and they are serious about having control over their environment. Eights fear being vulnerable and powerless more than anything, and cope with this fear by always being strong and in control. Eights are motivated by their desire to be independent and in control. They resist appearing or feeling weak and reject any authority that restricts them. So eights and threes are commonly misdiagnosed or identified because they have similar core motivations and fears. A famous eight is Martin Luther King. So this morning, Jason was like, "Oh, they sound like bad people." No, some of the most amazing people have come out to be eights because they are so strong and so fierce. If they are healthy, they can lead the world in a good direction. The ultimate measure, he says, of a man is not where he stands in moments of comfort and convenience, but where he stands at times of challenge and controversy. So you can hear his strength and his desire coming out in this comment right here. The thing for growth that eights can do is check in with what you're thinking and feeling before making decisions. So don't get quite as reactive. As a body-based type, eights act instinctively on their emotions, so they might kind of just react, which can result in impulsive outbursts or decisions that aren't fully thought through. When you feel the impulse to react, take time to sort through your thoughts and feelings before taking action. Good advice for everyone, especially for eights grow into the strength of the healthy two, and they stress into the reclusiveness of the five. And last but not least is the peacemaker. This is the easygoing, self-facing type. Receptive, reassuring, agreeable, and complacent. Nines are considered the position of privilege. The nine is the type that is connected and empathetic and can see through the eyes of all the eight other types. So it can be very hard to peg a nine. I have somewhat tested a nine because I've tested too many other types. They are calm, collected with their demeanor. They have an ability to diffuse conflict with ease. They have a zen-like presence, many of them. Mellow and soothing voices. They have a wide range of acquaintances, generally liked by most people. They are fluid, slow movements, and mere gestures. Nines fear being too needy, and thus they end up pushing people away. They cope with this fear by submitting to the desires and agendas of the people around them, because they don't want to push them away by being needy, so they just go along with what everybody else wants to do so that they can be included. Nines are motivated by their need for peace and harmony in their environment, and the desires to avoid conflict and deal with unpleasant emotions.
Don't push it. Keep that up there.
Yeah. So I just tested my mom this afternoon. I thought she was a 2, but she came out a 9. And she always tells me that she doesn't get angry or feel sad. And I was like, "Are you sure? Are you just avoiding those emotions?" And I think this helped her to see that maybe she was just running away from some of those feelings as opposed to actually working through them.
You know how the 8 said you can be confrontational and you might thrive on that confrontation? is it safe to say that if you are a non-confrontational type, you want to avoid confrontation at all costs? Confrontation makes you feel uncomfortable, like you're a 9?
If you're an unhealthy 9, healthy 9s learn to embrace conflict. But yes, at your worst. Or a 3 who's recoiling, an unhealthy 3 will start to avoid conflict.
So the need for peace and harmony doesn't necessarily mean that you avoid conflict, but you want to get things settled and have everybody.
Right. So an unhealthy 9, an unhealthy 8 can become abusive. An unhealthy 9 can just turn everybody off and just ignore everybody and just recoil. So it depends. A healthy 9 can help bring everybody together and unify people, and they're great mediators and counselors. A healthy 8 can lead the world into revolution. We all have strengths and weaknesses. Famous, this is where I had the saucy word. Sorry. If you're offended, you can talk to me later. This is Queen Elizabeth, though, so I thought she was worth quoting. She is a 9. She says, "The world is not the most pleasant place. Eventually, your parents leave you, and nobody is going to go out of their way to protect you unconditionally. You need to learn to stand up for yourself and what you believe, and sometimes, pardon my language, kick some." I feel like I can't say it. My children were here earlier. I had an excuse not to. But kick some butt. Learn to see the value in conflict, 9s. Expressing yourself can lead to conflict, but it also leads to deeper and more meaningful relationships. So embrace opportunities to connect with people by sharing what you think and by being open in disagreements. That'll help, as uncomfortable as it is. So 9s, they grow into the strength and the assertiveness of a 3, and when they're unhealthy, they go into the insecurity and the anxiety of a 6. So here you can see that this is a complex thing, and I'll show you even more. They're sectioned off, different groups section them off different ways, but typically the 2s, 3s, and 4s are in a group, the 5s, 6s, and 7s, and the 8, 9s, and 1s. This one is anger, shame versus fear. This one, let me see. Did it comment? Maybe it didn't save. Oh, I didn't save. I had saved something on my phone, but maybe can you refresh this? Maybe it'll pop up. But here you can see all the different growths, all the different stressors. You can see there's also another instinctive center, feeling center versus thinking center. And then the wings are always just the ones that are supposedly adjacent, although more ancient styles would have allowed you to wing elsewhere. So don't feel so trapped by people who kind of pigeonhole. You can just refresh.
Yeah, it's a little slow right now for some reason.
I was just going to show you an example of this test. So you guys are probably going to take the Truity one tomorrow. It takes about 10 minutes, I would say, to get through it all. Maybe a little longer if you're really
if you're really thinking about it.
You know, if you want to be honest. Well, I don't see it. Anyways, I tried to show you. Oh, that's not popping up. An example of how you might test that you're a 2, but you're almost the same with a 6, and then you've got a really strong 8. So there's also something out there called the triode Ps or something like that, which is just your 3 top types. Not to confuse you, I just can't stand putting people in tiny boxes because we're just so more complex and we're so much more dynamic. So as you study these, what I do, because I don't fit any one type quite right, a lot of people fit them perfectly. Some of us just don't fit as well. I try to find all the things that fit me and then use those tools for growth or awareness. So, any questions?
So flip on the back, make sure that for the next to last question, you put the one that you suspect might be the one that describes you most. And then for the second one, your wing is the one that's describes you second. Okay, try your best for those 2. And then make sure your name's on it so you can get the points for it and leave it on the desk, and that'll be fine. Maybe say thank you to our guest speaker as you're leaving. So if I'm a 3, then when do you go towards the peacemaker, and when do you go towards the loyalist?
Threes stress into the 9 and avoid conflict. They just want to go to sleep, basically.
Sounds familiar.
Mm-hmm.
And what's the grow into the 6 mean?
That's where you become more organized. I think you can read up on that, but I think that's the loyalist.
Sorry, 1 second. Here, hon. You want to split that cupcake?
Maybe. What is this? A chocolate covered?
I'm just going to put NA for grades because I don't think we have enough. I mean, there's a couple, but.
There's cake.
Yep, it's a cake ball.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, you're welcome. And which day is that again? Sorry.
All next week.
All next week. Okay. Just look on Classroom for all of your work. So 29th. So it's the
Sixes are prepared for like anything, so they become just ready for any conflict, any.
That's right. Okay.
And so you become really like assertive and capable and prepared. You think outside of yourself. I think the sixes are more attuned to their thoughts, and the threes are more feeling based. And so you become more aware of your feelings and can kind of think outside of yourself a little bit.
Okay. Okay. We have, first of all, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. You did really very good. And can you